Alrighty, folks, we are back for the post-game show to get you in the know. I am Ethan. That was a rough one, not gonna lie. I think even if the Saints would have won, I still would have felt like this was a really rough game to watch. You know, critical mistakes. Offense looked like the offense of last season. But despite that, I feel there's a little more of a reasoning. Especially with the way we're playing recently, it feels like this is not awful, but missing Taysom, it was obvious how much that hurts. Missing McCoy early on, he went down very, very early in the game. It just felt like this game, it really played the way that I think Dallas, or not Dallas, I'm sorry, the Eagles wanted you to play it, and it came down to crunch time and grinding things out. It just did not go in our favor, unfortunately. So to kind of get into it, like I said, immediate reaction, that game sucked. Let's be honest. The Dallas Goddard, whatever his name is, thing is rough because he's beating you all game, and then they lose their only wide receiver that people knew before coming into this game. And so he's the only guy you got to watch. And you just have a mental error and run into your own guy, you know, across the middle of the field. And props to Philly. It looked like that was designed. It looked like it wasn't a pick play in the sense that it was straight up, illegal, so to speak. But it was interesting just because the um, the way that went, it just felt a little, um, yeah, it felt intentional. I definitely think they meant to go where they were going with that route. They knew Goddard was the guy to make that play, and again, he's the only guy out there right now that has any say in this. Any movement in the offense really, and the fact that you had him one on one with an undersized safety to begin with is a little bit of a question mark, but nonetheless, that just feels like Saints football. Unfortunately, I think too many times we see um, the what's the word I'm looking for, the the end of games kind of um, just big plays, you know, and it just looks, yeah, I don't know, between mobile quarterbacks extending plays and late game big plays like that hurting the Saints. It almost feels like when you're watching games like this, these close crunch time end games, feels like the outcome, because it just happens time and time again where somebody gets wide open, somebody ducks under, somebody does this, and the next thing um, it's a touchdown or it's a big play, and it does this and it does that, and it gets the other team set up in prime position to take the game. And we had a little bit of a chance there. Derek Carr went for it over the middle. Doesn't even look like Shaheed was ready for it. That might be a conversation between Shaheed and Carr later on, because there was one thing I remember about when Drew Brees was here, is guys would say that you better be ready, because even if you don't think the ball's coming to you, he's going to try and get it to you. And that's one where Olave maybe doesn't make the catch, right, or really probably doesn't, no matter what. But it is one that if Olave's at least, I'm sorry, not Olave, if Shaheed's looking for the ball, if Shaheed's aware of it, um, then at least you have an incomplete pass, maybe. Shaheed puts his body in the way. It's a different game. You're gonna look at Derek Carr and say he shouldn't have thrown that, but yeah, he probably shouldn't have. But at the same time, your receiver makes a play on that ball. At least he puts his body in the way. It's probably an incomplete pass. That was already a very difficult interception. They looked at it for what felt like 15 minutes, and they just, it was an interception, so it stood, but it's still something where, like I said, if Shaheed puts his body in the way, Shaheed at least looks for the ball. that's probably an incomplete pass instead of interception. But I digress. Don't want to harp on that too much because I think the offense as a whole just was rough to watch today. But yeah, Mark in the comments, he says McCoy injury hurt as it did. That I think second play is when he got hurt. Maybe the third play, I can't recall. It might have been the third play, but that second play, we had that eye candy where you ran Rashid, behind the line of scrimmage, and it just left Olave one on one. And gave an easy reception on like the second play, and then McCoy gets hurt, and Derek Carr is facing pressure all game, and then just injuries in general. I think as well, you saw some of those instances when that 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. Hill coming in, Taysom being injured, I think that hurt a lot. He's the type of guy that Quebec's going to do a lot with. He's going to utilize to his fullest potential. He's going to move him around. He's going to make him a threat. And you take that away from the Saints offense, it's like taking Tyreek Hill away from Miami or like, I mean, I don't want to equivalent him to someone, not in the same position, but you take the biggest weapon. So it's, imagine taking, I would even reckon to say Patrick Mahomes away from Philly. Obviously not the same position. They don't do the same thing, but he's a threat no matter where, what he's doing. He can extend plays. He makes smart decisions, and things like that. So yeah, McCoy or Taysom coming in, Eric McCoy, third play of the game. Cesar Ruiz late in the game. He did go back in there, which is great. The Mary Davis was out that last drive. Not to say that would have made a huge difference, but maybe some alignment stuff happened that Davis is typically out there calling that didn't get called. And it not having those guys in crunch time, it definitely mattered. And even later on, that big hit by Carr, he was kind of on the ground. AK winced and kind of turned over in pain at one point. So I just felt like we got beat up this game. It was rough. People, we made the comment on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, that it feels like the Saints our offense just can't get out of their own way, running into the back of guys, tripping over people. Just a rough game. And it's amazing when you lose a guy like McCoy and Taysom Hill coming into the game, how much that means, because it showed, and absolutely showed, from the jump, really. There were a couple plays early on that looked all right, but then once McCoy went out, it was rough. But yeah, Steve Hancock in the comments, Hill being out hurt our defense was gassed because they had to play so much, way too many 3-and-outs, missed opportunities on the turnover. Spot on, spot on. I think, the even give the block punt to the defense if you want to go by fantasy rules, because to hold a team to only 15 points despite 460 yards is trademark Dennis Allen football, right? Like you're just not breaking. That's all you're doing, and getting 2 turnovers, along with 2 turnovers on downs, along with a blocked punt, 4 sacks, and it just felt like the defense did a lot right. But you're right. Time of possession. At one point in the second quarter, I believe it was like 13-2, which is insane. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We got beat up for real. Brian on Instagram, Sal Jr. offense was stale. Yeah, it showed how much we missed those guys. I think a lot of it goes back to Taysom. McCoy is obviously huge, but I agree with Steve on Facebook over here. It just um, that was rough. Hill not being there from the jump, I think, takes a huge part out of the offense. So Ryan over on Instagram, we should have destroyed the secondary. I'm not sure if you're just saying in general we should have, destroyed the Eagles secondary, or talking about our secondary. But yeah, you're right as far as the secondary goes. This feels like a game where the Saints should have done better in the passing game, but Derek Carr just didn't have a lot of time to throw. He was getting, a lot of pressure in his face early. There were 2 throws, both to Rashid, where it felt like he should have had the touchdown. He underthrew one and overthrew another, but that's what happens when you have a guy in your face. You just can't exactly make the throw that you want. And even the interception at the end there, Rashid had the opportunity, to probably make the play, and he didn't think the ball was coming to him. But even that throw, Derek Carr got bent over, at the waist. He got absolutely slumped. So, um, yeah, Brian on Instagram, CD Dude's going to talk a lot of trash now. Yeah. Uh, I think CD would have talked trash whether we win or lost. He'd have said something. He'd have found a way. Personally, well, at the end of the day, we did get a touchdown on CD. Olavi absolutely put it on him. So I'm just happy that it wasn't CD, being the guy who won the game or decided the game for us. He almost sold the game for us. But yeah, CD, he's back with Philly. He was fun to watch on the Saints. He's the type of guy that I think you hate to be going against because of his mouth. But when he's on your team, you at least enjoy the antics as a fan. Not sure how he is in the locker room, but as a fan, it's fun to watch those type of guys mouth off and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I was kind of shocked that they put CD. It might have had, I don't even remember when the injury happened, but with Slay, it might have had something to do with that. Why he was even on Olave to begin with, but CD's almost like an undersized linebacker more than he is the type of guy who you want to actually guard the number one wide receiver, whether he's a speedster, route runner, or just a big guy. Like DK Metcalf. Like that's not who you want guarding that guy. He's just more of a roamer. He's the type of guy who's going to make some plays and some hits, and that's about it. He's not someone you want guarding your number one wide receiver on the other team. But yeah, Brian's spot on. Love to hate him. Personally, I'm still a fan of the guy. He, I don't know. He talks a lot, but he's out there playing the game still. And we're sitting at home, so he's doing something right. But he ruffles a lot of feathers. Again, personally, I don't know him. I don't know how he is. We can only speculate, but I'll leave it at that. Pelicans Press, what up? Quick shout out to our guy over there, Pelicans Press, doing great things. But yeah, he nail on the head. Not having McCoy and Taysom really mess with protections versus. Yeah, absolutely. The game plan was going to be different coming in without Hill, and then you add in the fact that now you lost your starting center, who's I think we saw it when we traded away Jimmy Graham for Max Unger during the Saints years with Drew Brees. Center's an important guy. He really seals that offensive line, and we looked like a completely different offensive line without him. There was a lot of question marks on the offensive line going in, but so far they played pretty well, and it kind of sucked to see McCoy go down that early. And I think they said it was a groin injury officially, so that's probably a positive if we're looking for one, because he's had some. It's offensive lineman, right? You're going to have lower leg, lower extremity type issues. So the fact that it's groin could be a blessing in disguise. We'll see. Hopefully, get some more information on him sooner than later, because that's not ideal to lose your center. So. Brian back on Instagram, Taysom was our secret sauce for sure. McCoy going off sucks also. Yeah, spot on. That's the offense right there. That was I think if the way the defense played this game, the way the Eagles struggled outside of a couple of big plays, I think with the Saints offense having the full power of Hill and McCoy back in there, this is probably another, I'd reckon to say 30-point game, because there was nothing. And we had plenty of opportunities to do something, so that's, relatively unfortunate, but I digress about all that. So, we're getting into a little bit of a positive, so to speak, but Olave, man, Olave, what a toe drag. To be able to use your hands to catch that ball while also keeping your toe ready to drag. He was dragging that toe before he even was catching the ball. That was an elite end zone catch. Olave's an elite guy with routes. So that was really, really fun for him, for me at least, to see that he just really, um, he's showing that he's the guy we thought he was. There were some issues with him last season with like attitude, and people said he didn't want to block, but clearly he's making a fool out of a lot of folks because he's still elite. He's putting in some commitment this year. He's doing some things that you want your wide receiver one to do. But yeah, Giovanni on Facebook doing without McCoy, plain and simple. Yeah, we touched on it. I think Taysom not being in the game, being out, was also just another big blow. You lost a lot of play calling, you lost a lot of moving around, and even if Taysom's not getting the ball, he's still a fantastic blocker. Um, prime example at that 3rd and 4th and 1 situation where you did the Wildcat to Kamara. That's probably Hill back there, and it might be a different situation. AK is a hell of a running back, but whenever you don't have somebody like Taysom Hill to make those plays, it's unfortunate. I was interested to see that in a game that it felt like we were running into the back of guys. I was hoping that they would lead into Williams a little more, just because that's more of his forte. But he really didn't come in, and much if at all. And I understand he's not this great back that's going to get you, you know, 5-10 yards every play, but he's the type of guy that can just hit them in the mouth over and over again. And when you're struggling on offensive line, you got to start playing to their strength and just get those guys moving forward, because it felt like they were moving back. Um, but yeah, it was definitely just not ideal to lose McCoy that early. Brian over on Instagram lost the game, and I was, oh man, I sorry to hear that, man. Lost your grandpa at the same time. That's rough, man. Condolences to you. I hope at least there's some solace in the day that he had a good long life with him. I hope, but um, moving on, the struggled against mobile QB. It was brought up in the pregame. We struggle against mobile quarterbacks as long as I can remember. Even before Dennis Allen, it felt like those types of guys were our kryptonite. Today was no different. Like I said, I mentioned it in pregame. It sucked because you saw it happening in real time. The Saints, probably need to spend the off season figuring out, or really hopefully film and this and that this season and make some adjustments. Because there's still, another, what is 14 weeks of football. As far as outside of your bye week, 14 games, I should say. Um, Mobile quarterbacks are a thing in the NFL. They're becoming more and more popular. They're the elite ones in the league right now. So you just desperately need to figure out how to keep those guys contained, because if not, you're going to struggle come playoff time, because most of the teams that are playoff teams also have mobile quarterbacks. So you definitely need to figure that out, because that's not something that's going to bode well whenever you get to the big games. Tom Brady struggled against the Saints. That's because the Saints don't struggle against pocket quarterbacks. Tom Brady's the greatest of all time next to Drew Brees. Um, and he struggled against the Saints even when he was on the Patriots. So just need to figure that out, because that's the biggest hole in this defense as far as I'm concerned, is guys that can extend plays. Uh, you know, it's just time and time again that you see the same thing from the Saints defense with these mobile quarterbacks. But this game really isn't on the defense at all. I talked about that earlier. You can't have two turnover on downs, a block punt, and you come out with maybe 3 points from all of that is downright bad. That's just not good football. So something to be said there. But like I say, if we want to be competitive in the playoffs, you still do need to worry about those mobile quarterbacks, because they are the real deal in the playoffs. And like I said, most playoff teams are, in fact, those guys. Brian over on Instagram again, Miller just to step in and step up. I agree, but you can't really step up if you're not getting the time. We saw him in preseason a little bit more, but like I said, this was the game that I thought maybe we would lean in that direction, primarily because it's a game where your offense, or you didn't have Taysom, and then your offensive line gets banged up a little bit, losing McCoy, and your strong suit is getting those guys moving forward, and it just did not work that game at all. But It's just I thought we would see more of him. We didn't, but on another positive note, like I said, Olave's definitely our player of the game. That'll be out soon. Positive note, Denver Broncos, Sean Payton did us a favor. Absolutely shocked. I think a lot of people today, 26-7, the Buccaneers lost to the Denver Broncos. Buccaneers go down to 2-1. The Panthers are currently beating the Las Vegas Raiders. That is not something, again, I think anyone really expected. It is only the first quarter and it's only 7-0, but nonetheless, the Panthers are winning. Panthers could improve to 1-2. Buccaneers fall to 2-1 along with the Saints. So the standings are currently still just tied for first. Excuse me, Buccaneers and Saints. I think so far the only saving grace is the fact that the Buccaneers have not played a divisional game. We'll see how that goes. Buccaneers have Eagles next week, and then Falcons, and then Saints. So by week 5 or mid October, we'll have a pretty good picture of early going NFC South. I've said this before. It's tough to talk NFC South or NFC or divisional or conference stuff this early, just because there's not a whole lot to go on, right? But by mid October, we'll have a really clear picture of the NFC South, just because Buccaneers playing 2 divisional games back to back. And then you have we've already played a divisional game against the Panthers, and then we have a divisional game against the Falcons next week on the 29th, and then right after that on the 13th, we go on to play the Buccaneers. So by mid-October, we'll have 3 divisional games under our belt and hopefully a better record than the Buccaneers. And then we'll face the Buccaneers, which will be important because if they hang on and they play like they played last season, they'll be our biggest competition in the NFC South for sure. No doubt about that. Brian over on Facebook, I agree, man, because I said in the pregame that if you wanted to take some bets, I think the tight ends were going to have a good game, and really nothing. It was a forgettable performance for the tight ends. And it just felt like we weren't really utilizing them. Maybe we were keeping them in the block more. Who knows? But Foster had 1 catch, but it was a short throw and catch. And on the flip side, the Eagles leaned into their tight end in a game that was really, really rough to get through and really rough to have offense. And, it showed. You lean into those tight ends in games like this where they're a slugfest, and I think it was something like 150, 160 yards for Dallas Goedert, probably one of the best games of his career, if not the best game of his career. Phenomenal game for him. I mean, 61. I just looked it up. 61 was his long. 11 targets, 10 receptions, 107 yards. For a tight end to have a 17 yards per catch average, it's pretty insane. And I said in pregame, I think this was going to be the game of the tight ends. And the Saints just did not lean into that at all, which was unfortunate. But yeah, that was kind of the bets early on. I said tight ends if you like Juwan and Foster. I liked Foster more than Juwan this week for a touchdown. And it just, I don't know. It just felt like the game that we should have used tight ends, and Philly got the message, and the Saints didn't, unfortunately. So that's rather unfortunate, but Brian over on Instagram again, Shaheed missed some game-winning catches, bad pass, or poor catch. I don't know if it would. The only thing that I would put on Shaheed was that late interception. He wasn't even looking for the ball. The commentators, Greg Olson, and I can't remember who the other guy was for the broadcast that I had, said that you really shouldn't throw that because you don't need it all at once. You don't need it all at once, but I don't, like I said, I don't hate to throw, because if your receiver's at least looking for the ball, he turns, he puts his body in the way, and that ball just doesn't fall to the safety easily. I shouldn't say easily. That was a good interception, but just with a little bit of interference there as the offensive player, I think that's not an interception. The Saints have another chance on 3rd down or whatever it may be to pick up some yards. You're in 4-down territory, so I don't think you need to go crazy. You could have probably picked it up, but yeah, those 2 ones over Shaheed's head. The first one was underthrown. I don't know how much more of an adjustment he could have made for that one, but a lot of it was because of the pressure that was in Derek Carr's face. And then the second one, I'm pretty sure Derek Carr almost got hit in the face. when he overthrew that second one of Shaheed. So I don't necessarily know if that's a bad throw or catch. I think it's just a byproduct of Eric McCoy being out and suffering some offensive line anchor missing that you get with McCoy being in there. Like I said, the center is probably on any good offensive line the most important part of the offensive line, unless you're running a lot of screenplays, then your tackles are probably the most important part. But for the sake of the quarterback that we have, I think center is probably the best one there. So looking around the league a little bit, like I said, we got the Panthers currently winning. It's a divisional game for the Saints, and the Falcons play on Monday. Again, I'm still interested to see the Ravens and the Cowboys game and how that plays out. I'm still kind of shocked that the Cowboys are underdogs in that game, considering the Ravens' record currently. But yeah, I don't really know. Again, the league's tough to look at right now just because it's so short. But I don't know. That again. I think the Cowboys game interests me the most. I don't even really care about the Cowboys, but it just feels like they shouldn't be underdogs this early. To a team that's 0-2 and the Ravens. But Brian over on Facebook here. I got trolled by Eagles fans on our own damn Mardi Gras float Friday off Kneaux. I hate that. No, same. Yeah, I think the Eagles fans, they were full in effect, man. The dome felt like they had a lot of Eagles fans in it based on the ones that they show on the broadcast. So Eagles fans travel well. They're a big fan base. Like I said, I like Eagles fans personally. They can get a little rowdy, but so can Saints fans. So, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I also think Saints fans are petty, and I love it. I'm petty. I'm a Saints fan. Antonio Daniels for the Pelicans says, if you stay petty, you don't have to get petty. So, I don't like when we play them, but I like it, So, the float was an interesting touch over there for the Eagles on Canal. But yeah, like I said, I think the game that I'm watching for sure is Cowboys, and then later on we have the Falcons and the Chiefs. That should be a fun game. The Chiefs are 2-0, Falcons are 1-1, and just important for divisionals because at some point or another, if the Falcons and the Panthers have a bad enough roster, then your divisional games don't matter as much. As far as tiebreakers go, they still matter because I think Tampa's going to give us a run for our money. But anytime touchdown scores, I was originally going to say CeeDee Lamb, but this went on a little longer than I thought it would. I thought I'd be able to get that out for you guys. I like CeeDee. He's plus money this week. It just feels like he's going to have a little bit of a bounce back game, but time will tell on that. So we're not going to go with that. We'll take a look at the Sunday night game, Falcons and the Chiefs. I really like it feels like an easy one, but Isaiah Pacheco just feels like he should be able to get into the end zone against the Falcons defense. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I'm going to refuse to take any bets on the Falcons players. I don't want any of them to get a touchdown ever. Next week is, I'm not going to say it live, but FTF week for the Falcons. I'll abbreviate it for you guys. I'm sure, you know exactly what it means. If you don't, Google it. I don't know, messages on Instagram or Twitter. I'll let you know what it means. But yeah, so FTF week starts in about a day here. As far as I'm concerned, it starts the minute that the Saints game wraps up. So let's have some fun next week. Let's go out and put a stomping on. Oh, you know what? I'm tripping. Isaiah Pacheco's, I'm pretty sure he's out. So don't take that bet. I don't know why I said that. Isaiah Pacheco, pretty sure he's on injured reserve. Completely forgot about that. So, yeah, I don't know. I got nothing for anytime touchdown scores. I lost. I'm 0-3 this week, so we're not going to chase anything. Other than that, this has been the post game show to get you in the know. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Appreciate everybody commenting. Make sure you check us out everywhere at Be in the Know. Check out the website, www.theknow.com. Follow us everywhere, man. It's appreciated. All the interactions appreciated. Check out our flagship podcast, Who Effing Knows, the Brew Brothers. They're out there doing some great content. They were recently at the Tulane, Louisiana game out there on the sidelines, getting some good stuff. We have that Saints pod. If you're a fan of football, if you're a fan of Saints, check that out. That's weekly. We do these pre and post game shows every week. If you ever want to be a guest, hit us up. We're always open to having people on here, so just let us know. And again, this is the post game show to get you in the know. Appreciate you stopping by. And who dat?